Welcome back to another episode of the OutCast. In today's weekly news review, we're going to be going over quite a few things that happened this week. Second assassination attempt on Trump, an interview with Kamala, apparently a whistleblower that stated that Kamala had the interview questions ahead of time. Of course, we'll never actually know what happened because apparently she died in a car crash, giving Clinton 2.0 over here. And then there were some other things that we'll also discuss and talk about. I'm joined here with my co-host Jared
Hello.
and Dale.
I am here.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen, what do y'all want to talk about first? There's a lot that happened this week.
Well, let's go over the news that we know the least about first. I would say is the Trump assassination attempt. There's just not a lot of information out there, and what's out there is pretty straightforward as far as I know. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Let's do it.
Cool. So on Sunday, September 15th, around 1 to 2 p.m., Donald Trump was golfing at one of his many resorts, and he was on the fourth hole, I believe is what they said, going on to the fifth hole, and they heard four shots ring out. Shots fired was called over the comms for the Secret Service and the local police. The local police got out on their Crime Stoppers platform and got the information on the suspect, and then he was apprehended in Marion or Martin County, which is one county above Palm Beach where the shooting took place. He's a convicted felon, so he wasn't even supposed to have a firearm. So there's some other stuff with his background. He volunteered and went to the war in Ukraine. He's donated to the Democratic Party every year, and he's been on the New York Times as a interviewee a couple of times. His passion is the war in Ukraine and how it's a fight good versus evil, blah, blah, blah. He's very passionate about that, to the point of saying that if you don't support any part of the war in Ukraine, you're a villain. Stated that he hated Trump and that democracy needs to reign, and with Trump being a threat to democracy, that could never happen. Inflammatory tweets like that really could be word for word for what the Biden campaign has put out in their statements. During the exchange comes out, the sheriff's department, local sheriff's departments, the Secret Service, and the FBI operations head of Miami gave a joint statement on Sunday explaining the situation. There's a team that moves 1 to 2 holes ahead of the president when he's golfing to clear the site. One of the Secret Service agents that was clearing the site saw a gun barrel sticking through a chain link fence that was the perimeter of the golf course that had trees and shrubbery around it. Saw a barrel sticking out, immediately opened fire to protect the president at all costs. Shot 4 rounds. The shooter seems to be unharmed. The shooter then ran, and then the chase ensued. The shooter apparently did not get off any shots because he did not have line of sight of the president. You can look up the map of the actual golf course, and it seems that where the shooter was sitting, which was right next to the road, because the road is about 20 yards from the chain link fence to the golf course, he had line of sight of 3 separate lanes of the holes that were hundreds of yards long. And it seems as if President Trump and his entourage that were golfing were basically obscured by a patch of forest and thick trees that covered up the corridor where they were at. But had he not been caught within 2 or 3 minutes, they would have been at the starting point of the next hole, which would have been 20 or 50 yards from the perpetrator. So he was caught before he could do any damage. His weapon looks to be a modified AKM, which is it's kind of like they put an AK-47 inside of a different stock. It looks like a very interesting weapon with a long-range rifle scope, and he appears to have had a GoPro that he had hooked onto the chain link fence to record the entire scenario that he was about to initiate. And he also had a backpack stuffed with ceramic plates to act as body armor, and another bag with ceramic plates, and he put those both on the fence to possibly block incoming fire from the Secret Service. So and the president is unharmed. This is the second attempt on his life in, I believe, 57 days, and that all transpired on Sunday afternoon. The suspect's in custody and it's come out that he was a convicted felon, so he shouldn't have even been able to have a firearm in the first place. So,
But yeah, 2 times in under 60 days is actually crazy. Can you actually, like, if you take a step back and think about that, we've had a previous president, somebody who's running to be a world leader, 2 assassination attempts. And it seems like one side of media is always going, oh, well, he deserves it because he's a bad person, which is a ridiculous response to have when they're literally trying to kill him. But it's a very communistic response. So I'm really not surprised because he's going against, what is essentially the American Communist Party, or Democrats, if you'd like to call them that, which Trump is a threat to democracy, even though everything they're doing right now goes directly against democracy. I mean, their candidate wasn't even democratically elected in the nominations again, right? So I don't understand all these people saying that Trump is a threat to democracy. Well, I guess we're not even a democracy if you think about it. I mean, we're a constitutional republic, which is completely different than a democracy.
right, we have some democratic systems that allow us to elect certain parts of the
Exactly.
government.
For those of you who don't know your history, the reason why our founding fathers didn't let us be a democracy is because democracy has always ended in authoritarianism. Always, without fail.
Yeah.
So, yes, thankfully, President Trump was not injured, and his Secret Service were able to find the guy before anything was to happen. The guy ran away. They found his bags, his guns. They are reporting it as an AK-47 style weapon, but looking at the pictures, it's very strange to me that it doesn't have a pistol grip. It looks more like somebody took a rifle, put an extended clip into it, and then or extended magazine for people who are going to be super specific about what they want to hear, and then put that on a rifle. I just don't know. Like, it looks like this weird monstrosity. I really don't like the look of it, but that's
It
what
does have a it
everything
does
is
have a
being reported. Huh?
Yeah, it does have a fairly long barrel. Looks to be 18 to 20 inches, which, if President Trump was going to be, say the dude wanted to take the shot at 500 yards, and the
Yeah,
magazine seems to
anybody
be,
who's
yeah,
decently practiced, yeah, that's an easy shot
yeah.
if you're decently practiced. So it's a good thing that they did catch sight of the guy, and yeah, that was crazy. So
Fun fact,
that happened.
the last president that had multiple assassination attempts within this short period of time of 57 days was in 1975. President Gerald Ford had an attempt on September 5th and then on September 22nd. So, a little bit of
Whoa,
history for you.
they really didn't like Gerald Ford.
So
Yeah.
we've already gone over all of the details of the assassination attempt. Let's actually talk about how we got to this point. Because in normal modern American politics, it is very out of the ordinary that somebody would, one, attempt to take the life of a former president, as well as attempting to take the life of a presidential candidate. So, how did the politics in general, the temperature of this country, the social fabric gets so heated to the point where there is an assassination attempt? Two, in fact.
Well, one of the reasons is if you look at the media, right? We've been talking about this the last few episodes. The media is in a craze and they're telling people that Trump is going to end their way of life. If he gets elected, they're stating that people will go to jail for treason, that he's going to try to sentence to death, his political or opponents. They're literally telling people, you will die if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. Like, Trump is the devil. Trump is Hitler. If you don't vote Kamala, then you're for the fall of our democracy. I mean, they're hyping people up on emotions and making people feel like these crazy emotions of dread over him when, if you actually look at what he does, it's completely against everything they're saying. I mean, it's outrageous to me that people are freaking out over Donald Trump saying that he's the end of democracy, when in reality, a lot of what he stands for is just trying to get our country back to where it was 80 years ago when we were the strongest nation in the world, right? How is that a threat to democracy? You guys are trying to take us to a whole nother level of where this country's never been. In a lot of ways, they're communistic and socialistic in nature. You're the ones who are the threat to quote unquote democracy. Really, they're a threat to our republic and to our freedoms. because this is the authoritarian outcome that happens when people believe you're in a pure democracy. And we can see that every presidential election, people are so uneducated on this that they think that they should get rid of the electoral college and just have it be a popularity vote. Well, the reason why it's not a popularity vote is because if it was, then only 7 cities in the United States would decide who's going to be president. Only 7 cities. If you don't live in those 7 cities, your vote doesn't matter at that point. But we've fallen because, as we talked about in a previous episode, it's been, 8 years of nothing but anti-Trump, Trump hate being spilled into the newsways, and 24/7 news, too. All these guys can think about is Trump. Like, it amazed me, like, the first 2 or 3 years, anytime you'd hop on, like, CNN after Biden had been elected, what are they doing? Oh, Trump this, Trump that, Trump this. Like, it's Trump fever. People make him out to be a villain. Oh, Trump is bad guy. How can you vote for him? That's how we get to this point. Like, they're brainwashing people into committing these acts because they think that if Trump gets elected, these people genuinely think if Trump makes office, then that'll be the end of their livelihood, right? These are moves made out of desperation and the brainwashing of a lot of our people because they only watch one news source. First, little side tangent. If you only get your news from one news program, you're probably doing it wrong. Whether it's Republican news, independent, or Democrat, the best way for you to do it is to actually look at all of the reported news cycles and then kind of piece together what's happening. Because if you just listen to one program the whole time and nobody else, it's very easy for you to be manipulated and brainwashed. And that's what a lot of these people do. I mean, CNN, ABC, MSNBC, all of them have the same kind of rhetoric that they're spewing. And that's what's kind of pushed us to this point.
Now, speaking about the rhetoric, it was in the debate between Trump and Kamala during their first, possibly only presidential debate that Trump said, because of what Kamala has been saying, that's the reason why he took a bullet. It's the threats of saying Trump is a threat to democracy. It's Democrats saying that Trump is an existential threat, that he needs to be taken out. That there is no context that they're providing. They're saying that Trump is going to remove your constitutional rights. He's going to become a dictator, become a tyrant, when in fact Trump and Republicans are pushing for the SAVE Act, or a form of it that will prevent non-US citizens from voting in the election, potentially making your vote count for nothing if they overturn your vote, uh, if they overpower your vote through fraud. Trump is actually, and the Republicans are trying to keep our elections safe and secure to make sure that the democratic aspects of our uh, country are held intact. And yet, the Democrats say Trump is a threat to democracy. He will be the end of democracy. After this election, if Trump wins, there are no more elections. People take that seriously. And do those politicians have any criminal liability for assassination attempts? No. No, obviously not. Did they call for this violence to occur against Trump? No. Did they specifically say that Trump should be assassinated or shot? Maybe a couple news anchors did, but the politicians that are saying Trump's a threat, he's an existential crisis, they haven't said any of that. Do they bear some responsibility in this aspect? Yes, absolutely. It is first very, I should say, naive for you to call your opponent an existential threat to this country and not expect somebody to act on it. And that's what happened during the first assassination attempt. Somebody actually acted on what they were saying. Then, to continue after that, after an assassination attempt has occurred, because the rhetoric is so fired up, the temperature is too hot in this country, yet you continue on and you continue to say that Trump is a threat to democracy, that he will end democracy that he will be the end of this country. No more elections. Your vote won't matter. If you continue to say that, it's gone past the point of naivety. It is malice. It is unacceptable for you to continue to spew lies about Trump with him saying that uh, he was talking about an economic bloodbath. Then Kamala goes and says that if Trump wins, or if Trump doesn't win, there will be a bloodbath. It is immoral for you to continue these lies when you it is obviously clear from an attempted assassination that those lies are fueling violence toward one political candidate. And now there's a second. This rhetoric has built up to the point where political violence is to be expected on one side of the aisle. And that's evil. It is true evil.
Exactly. And when you really look at the differences between the two news stations, you'll see, yes, the Republicans are, oh, Kamala Harris is a threat to America. She's a threat to freedom. She's a threat to this. But the difference that you see is that the Democrats are calling for violence. They're making it seem like there is no other choice but for Donald Trump to disappear from existence. It's genuinely ridiculous. And when you read the articles that they put out, right? The Atlantic, Trump's anti-democratic actions, or, you know, um, let's see, why Trump's control of the Republican Party is bad for democracy by The Conversation this year. Trump's escalating election rhetoric, a threat to democracy, ABC News. Trump's threat to democracy in the 2024 election, Vox. Why the 2024 election could result in more threats to U.S. democracy by The Conversation. The fear factor is now hurting Trump, The Washington Post. Trump versus Harris. Who poses a greater threat to democracy? Oh man, it is such a pet peeve to see all these people running, democracy. It's a threat to democracy. To democracy. We're not a democracy, people. Educate yourself. We're a huge difference. And the use of that word is a way to slowly twist and bend the way you view things to be like, oh yeah, we're democracy, right? We vote and the greatest vote wins. It's a slow change from, no, we're a constitution. We vote in representatives. Those representatives are then there to represent our voice, no matter how small the group is, so that not a single minority is left out, right? And yeah, but all these, that was kind of a side piece. All these ones are saying, threats to democracy. No wonder these people are genuinely convinced that Donald Trump is the end to the United States of America, because all of these articles, all of these people are posting this, right? And one thing too, if you're ever wondering why most of these articles sound the exact same, look at the people who own them. Most of the major news networks are owned by like the same like 5 or 6 people that all know each other. But they're all pushing for this. Trump is evil. Trump is a threat to our country. And people are coming out for it. And because of that, unfortunately, we had a second attempt on Donald Trump's life, which I'm super thankful, yeah, that they found the guy before he was able to, take a shot at President Trump. But this just really concerns me because it's like, well, when's the next one at this point? You know what I'm saying? Because they're not turning down the rhetoric.
No, no, actually, in fact, uh, just after the second assassination attempt, Lester Holt from NBC blamed the second attempt on Trump's life on Trump's rhetoric. Yes, because that makes sense that some politician said something that turned up the temperature, so someone came in and tried to assassinate him. That really makes a lot of sense. But a bit an even bigger issue is, why did it get to a second attempt? The reason why it got to a second attempt is that the first attempt was almost successful. For terrorism, assassins, all manner of evil, any form of hope that your actions may succeed it breeds more violence. It breeds more terrorism. It breeds more assassins. The hope that you can achieve your goal is what makes assassins do what they do, or would be assassins.
Right. One of the main things that these people do is they compare Donald Trump to Hitler. I mean, they make direct comparisons, direct hyperboles to him as Hitler. Um, and what that does is when you do that, right? When you compare Donald Trump to Hitler, you're comparing him to what the public sees as the worst possible thing that has ever existed. So used to back in the day that would be the devil. If you called someone the devil, that would mean that you're calling them literally the worst thing that has ever existed. But since we're now in the world where we don't talk about faith or anything, it's no longer about the devil. It's about Hitler because everyone recognizes Hitler was evil. Just this past month, uh, just this past month, there have been multiple news anchors that have related him to being Hitler. Rachel Maddow from MSNBC says Trump keeps saying the kinds of things, the exact kind of things that Hitler and Mussolini said. There's a reason Hitler and Mussolini said this stuff too. It worked then, it works now. Joe Scarborough from also MSNBC on Morning Joe said Trump will imprison, he will execute whoever he is allowed to imprison and execute, drive from the country. Just look at his past. It's not really hard to read.
Which is a
Absolutely.
completely baseless comment, right? Trump has never said that.
That's
That is all
defamation.
that's all their extrapolation on his stuff. He has never
You are literally
he was wanting to do
inciting.
that.
There's this whole conversation about free speech is limited because when you're inside of a theater you can't yell fire. This is essentially what they're doing. Essentially, what they are doing is they are inciting an action. They are saying that Trump is going to kill you, Trump is going to imprison you, Trump is going to harm you, and they're saying that as if it's fact, whereas they have absolutely no proof of it, and that's what causes these people to do these things. And it's
Yeah, what's
absolutely
the
insane. It
logical
shouldn't be
outcome?
legal for them to do that. It's the same. It's under the same vein.
What's the logical outcome? If you tell somebody this person is a threat to democracy, this person will take away all of your rights, your right to vote, you won't have the opportunity to elect any more presidents, you won't have any more elections, they're going to take away your rights. What's the most logical outcome of that? Another question, what do we have the Second Amendment for? We have the Second Amendment, one, to protect ourselves in any circumstance, but also to protect us as Americans from a tyrannical government. And if you have this picture that you're painting of your political opponent, where you say they are a tyrant, they are a threat to democracy, they're going to take away your rights, that's literally what we have the Second Amendment for, is to prevent that from happening. So what's the logical outcome? Somebody's going to go and try to assassinate Trump. That is the logical outcome of their rhetoric.
I think that they know what they're doing. It's not even it's not even like, they're just being naive. At this point, they know what they're doing, and they know they can get away with it. As of right now, they can get away with speaking to 500,000 people because that's how bad their ratings are right now. 500,000 people for them putting on cable news. They can tell all those 500,000 people for 8 years that Trump, for 10 years, that Trump is an evil, horrible, Hitlerian person and brainwash them, and this is the result. I mean, how else can you justify killing somebody? You can justify killing Hitler. Absolutely. Like, if Hitler was right before it, I think that if you pose this question, Hitler's in front of you right now, the Adolf Hitler, okay? And you have a gun. What are you going to do, right? And it's not like, this is baby Hitler. We're talking
Pull the
about, like,
trigger.
it's like you're going to pull the trigger. And every American would say that because of what he did. Yet, and because of that, when you replace that person, when you psychologically replace that person, insert Donald Trump as Hitler for so long and brainwash you into thinking that Donald Trump is Hitler, that is why people can do this thing. That's why people can get past that moral high wall, that inhibition to kill somebody because they're gonna kill people. I mean, I have to save somebody, and that's kind of where it goes. I think that kind of wraps up most of the most of the Trump assassination, except for here's the fact. Okay, one more thing. Trump's itinerary was not in Trump's itinerary, like the publicly released one, whether he was going to be at this golf course or not. That was not on the itinerary. It was a spur of the moment thing, which means the dude either got lucky, which can't be true because he was at that golf course 12 hours before. Someone else, he followed them, followed them from wherever they were going, which shouldn't be true because he was, once again, there are pictures of him and video of him being there 12 hours before. Or someone inside of the Trump campaign or inside of the Trump's detail or someone in that sphere or someone outside the sphere hacked in and found out. Someone told somebody and the itinerary that was not public. So someone snitched. Someone set this up.
And another question to ask, why is this not a situation where Democrats are pushing for gun control?
They already are.
I mean, obviously, this would be the perfect opportunity for gun control. We have a convicted felon who shouldn't be owning a. Oh, right. It's already a crime for him to have that weapon as possession of a weapon. That's already a crime. So there's no more gun control that can limit what this guy was able to get his hands on. No, we don't know how he got his hands on that gun when he's not allowed to purchase guns right now.
Yeah, we know
He
how
was
he got a hold of it illegally.
Exactly. He was stopped by a good guy with a gun.
Yeah.
That is the solution for gun control. But I we'll speak on Kamala Harris's interview and gun control later. But yeah, this would-be assassin. He does have a criminal record. He holed himself up in a business with a firearm. He had a hit and run. He was resisting arrest, and he got a probation period as well as since he is convicted felon, he's not able to purchase gun, which he still got a gun, which just goes to show that if a criminal does not care about the law, they're going to get a gun whether the law says they can or not. So the best way to protect yourself against a bad guy with a gun is to be a good guy with a gun.
That's the
That's
only
how
way to
Trump's
protect
life was
yourself. Yeah.
saved. But I did mention Harris's interview. Harris just had her first solo interview on ABC, an 11-minute interview. Woo, that's a real big one. Let's get into that one. So there were a couple things that I've noticed, and specifically, it's how long she dances around a point until she actually gets to an answer or a semblance of an answer or just avoids the question entirely. During Harris's interview, her first question, she was asked how specifically she would lower inflation. It took 1 minute 57 seconds before she even mentioned a tax deduction for small businesses, and then another 30 seconds later where she mentioned a tax credit for home builders. That's a total of 3 minutes and 25 seconds with no answers. Neither one of those are a way that would lower inflation. There are some policies that she wants to pursue, but no answer on how she would lower inflation. Then she was asked for one example on how she's different than Biden, and immediately she said that basically she wasn't old. But then 40 seconds later, it took her to say that she would expand the child tax credit. And is that something Biden is against? Then she was asked pretty much where she draws the line on guns. She said that she's a gun owner and she supports the Second Amendment. Yeah, it doesn't matter because 45 seconds later, she says that she would support an assault weapons ban. So, are assault weapons not guns?
She says these weapons were literally designed for war, which is a complete falsehood because there is no assault weapons that are legal for regular citizens. Assault rifles are weapons that were engineered to have fully automatic or burst capabilities.
And yeah, and question, were any weapons, firearms, when the Second Amendment was created, were any of those not meant to kill people? All weapons are made they're meant Their intention is to kill. Then her
Correct.
final question is, what is Trump's appeal? And she did not answer that question. Just like the first question, she entirely danced around it, and she actually ended up just criticizing Trump through that entire question. But let's go back over all the questions and deconstruct them one by one. So, her first question, she was asked how specifically she would lower inflation. Would you guys like to take a bite into that one?
Yes. So she basically gave a non-answer. She's like, "How are you going to tackle inflation?" Well, I'm going to focus on the middle class, which is not an answer. And then she babbled on for a while about how she grew up in this type of situation. She knew these people, blah 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 blah. Not an answer. Not an answer. Gets to it, and then she just
She
repeats
keeps
what she's been
mentioning the
saying.
same thing.
Yeah, and then she gets to this point, and she just repeats what she said before, which is, "Oh, we're going to do a $25,000 home deposit for a
Well,
first-time home buyer."
she also keeps mentioning the same stories.
Yes, same stories, but she changes them every time
Yeah.
because she can't keep them straight. And then also, she talks about the $50,000 for a first time for a startup business, $50,000 tax credit, and it's like, okay,
How is that going to lower inflation?
how's that going to lower inflation? And then she talks about, oh, it's going to be a $6,000 child tax credit. And I'm like, and it's like, okay, you literally just stole that from Trump, whatever. But there was nothing new. She literally rambled on about how she grew up in this lesser than whatever her situation, and her mom worked really hard hours. Okay, her mom was a cancer researcher. When she was a teenager, her mom did not stay in the Francisco Bay Area. No, she moved her to Montreal, Canada, where she lived a life of luxury, we would say. Her mom made, in today's dollars, anywhere from $190,000 to $300,000.
Which is not middle class.
That's not middle class. I mean, she was not a middle class person. She's been given everything her entire life.
And that's about when she said that her mom purchased her first house. Because she was saying that her mom purchased her first house when she was a teenager. So, in Canada, I guess.
It wasn't a house, actually. It was I forget what the name is of it. It's weird. It's kind of like a condo, I guess. I don't know exactly what it's called, but she purchased.
Condominium.
Yeah, no, it's something else that they call it. Anyway,
Different?
yeah, it's different. But she purchased that. But once again, this doesn't speak on the economy. How are you going to lower inflation? Hello, I'm sorry to tell you this, but even the Republican numbers of inflation are wrong. I was just at the store today. 5 years ago, I could go to the store, pick up a stick of deodorant for $4, if not for $3. Okay,
Oh,
for
yeah,
sales.
that's expensive.
It is $8 per stick. That is 100% increase in inflation. It's double the price. You're telling me that we're in a 20% inflation? No. That's like aggregate of everything together, 20%, and that's the number the Democrats don't talk about. Democrats are like, "Oh, we're at 2.9%." No, we're at 20.1% aggregated together. Like collectively, we're 20% higher for everything in the entire US market than it was 5 years ago. Individual items are exorbitantly expensive. I picked up some Freon refrigerant for our vehicles. They used to be $3 a bottle. They are now $10 a bottle. You're talking about inflation that has not been seen since the Great Depression. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I actually believe the inflation rate is worse than what the Great Depression was.
Yeah, I just haven't seen the statistic yet of that. I haven't looked at the Great Depression's inflation rate. Because the Great Depression was mainly a food shortage due to the fact of the Dust Bowl happening and the famine and whatnot, which is not what we're dealing with. Everything that's happened is completely government influenced. Donald Trump, at the end of his presidency, had the economy coming back. All of the jobs that came back were from Donald Trump. They were not from the Joe Biden policies. Think about it. What did Joe Biden do as policies? He destroyed he destroyed the Keystone Pipeline. He completely defunded it and said, "Nope, we're not doing that anymore. Pull the project." He killed it.
His literal first day, like he made like thousands of people lose their job instantly.
Exactly. How is that creating jobs? Oh, we're going to create jobs in green energy. Okay. Have those even been looked at? Oh, yeah, they have. And it turns out, after they reported, they found out that 818,000 jobs that were reported didn't exist. None. So you're telling me almost 1 million jobs that you said that you made, you didn't make. They don't exist. They're gone. And you're telling me that you had a good economy, that you've been historic on the economy, a historic travesty. Not only that,
And
if you're talking about just assets,
Kamala,
yeah, no, if you're talking about assets, the Kamala Harris debacle with the border. I mean, come
oh,
on.
awful.
We've lost more jobs, and we've lost more people. Okay, we've lost 75,000 people last year to fentanyl poisoning. That's ridiculous. That is a net detriment to the economy because we don't have those people in the workforce anymore. Not to mention the Afghanistan debacle, which she said she was the last person in the room, and she agreed. And during the debate, she actually, when she said this, there's a video now going around of these soldiers who are in an active war zone in Jordan
Oh
holding up
yeah,
their
it's
phone
like,
recording.
why are we here then?
She's like, we have, because of my Joe Biden and my decision, we now have no active duty military members in service in an active war zone. All the camera pans around, and the soldiers are like, "What are we?" And
Yeah,
it's so, she's just
she
lie
has
after lie.
ruined everything she has touched. Like, we'll bring it back to the interview in just 1 second, but she's ruined everything that she's touched. She's failed on everything. She was tasked with connecting Americans with high-speed internet, and she connected
Zero.
big whopping zero. She was tasked with constructing electric chargers across the U.S. for charging EVs, and she
6.
made 7.
Ooh, 7. It went up.
So, yeah, she made 7 out of thousands that she was hundreds of thousands that she was supposed to make. She has been a failure on everything that she has touched. And then her second question, like, she's wrecked the economy. Her second question, give one example on how she's different from Biden. And her first answer was basically, well, I'm not old. She said something along the lines of, I bring a new generation of leadership. Okay, congrats, you're not 80 something, but you still subscribe to the same old failed policies of the old man. It took her 40 seconds to say that she would expand the child tax credit. Yet, is that something that
The child
Biden
tax credit
is
that
supposed to?
Yeah, the child tax credit that also we can acknowledge wasn't even her original idea. And that's one thing that really aggravates me. So people just will say, "Oh, you don't like Kamala because she's coming up with these great ideas." No, none of them were her ideas. If you look at the timetable of when these ideas were given, they were given 2 months before she even started saying anything. And if you look at the articles, I have articles here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find them right this second, of them trashing the fact that JD Vance had done the child tax credit first, but then they were sitting there and absolutely praising Kamala over the fact that she said, "Oh, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to make it just a little bit more." And I was just sitting there like, what? Like, you guys were just trashing him for the exact same idea. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, so CBS News article. Ready? CBS News. Vance wants to raise the child tax credit to $5,000. Here's why that could be difficult. But then Kamala Harris proposes $6,000 tax credit for new parents and middle class tax breaks, and it's got her like smiling, and it's all about this. And then you have former President Trump vows to stop taxing tips, which would cost the government up to $250 billion over 10 years, according to nonpartisan watchdog group. But then Kamala comes out with the exact same thing on CBS News, Vice President Kamala Harris is rolling out a new policy position saying she'll fight to end taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. And it's this whole like bright, oh, she's the chosen one kind of thing that's going on. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, none of this is her idea. Like they're grabbing it and she's like, okay, I'm going to do what he's doing, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it just a little bit more. But we're going to say he's dumb and say I'm good for it. It's completely garbage. And it makes me so angry. And I hate listening to her talk about her policies. One thing y'all were talking about earlier, right? How are you going to help the economy? Every time you ask her that, she goes, well, we're going to focus on the middle class. We're going to focus on the middle class. For those of you that know your history, I want you to know that we're going to focus on the middle class was a very famous idea with communism, right? The idea is to create everybody to be middle class. But in reality, all you do is you turn the middle class into the low class. And then the people who are already high class, they stay the selected, they stay the chosen. They receive all the resources. You don't think that's really what happens? Why don't you study Russia? Why don't you study Cuba? Why don't you study all of these countries that went communist and then look at how the people happened? Oh, also, before you get to that point, why don't you drag yourself through all the millions of bodies that ended because of communism? Communism has more deaths on it than the world wars. That's something people should think about too. I hate it. Everything about her policy is always, oh, for the middle class, this, or we're going to do this. And it's because I understand what the people are going through. You don't understand anything. You grow up in a wealthy family. You got into your political career by sleeping with another politician. There's nothing about you that is proper or even qualified to run this country. She's trying to run on the fact that she was an attorney. You were a trash attorney. You were subpoenaed by a court to give documents or evidence that would prove innocent a man on death row. You had denied it until you were forced by the court to give that away. Everything about you is fake, and I don't trust any of it.
Yeah, no.
That's a good point. That leads into the last question. We'll touch guns in a second, but that leads into the last question, which she was asked, what is Trump's appeal? So, what is Trump's appeal to the average American voter, the MAGA group?
For me, personally speaking, he's not a politician, right? One thing I personally hate is career politicians. I don't think we should have career politicians. If you look at all of our early founding fathers and our early politicians, what were they doing? They were your average worker who was out, working in the daily force, and then they would run for office to help make things better. Now we have these people that stay up and they live in Washington and they don't know what it's like to live, as the average person. I mean, that super famous photo of Hillary Clinton when she went to that one girl's apartment in New York, and it was like a 6x6, like teeny tiny little thing. Obviously, that's an exaggeration on the measurements, but she just sat there shocked. These people don't know what it's like to live in this country. They are so protected in the Capitol and by what they do. They literally vote for their own raises.
True.
Trump is not that. Trump has literally had to work his way all the way up. He took a pay cut to become president.
I would
His
say
company lost value. That's a major allure to me, is the fact that he's choosing to take a loss so that he can come and support this country and try to help it where he sees the pitfalls. That's a huge allure to me. Not only that, his policies make sense. His economic policy. If you think who's more qualified to make economic policy, right? Kamala Harris, who has been a pretty subpar litigator her entire life, or Donald Trump, who is an expert businessman who turned a small loan of $1 million into a multi-billion-dollar company, multiple companies owned by him. Nobody hated Donald Trump before he ran for president. You can find pictures of all these people that hate him now and want to fight him. They were friends with him back then. But he's got the economic expertise. And we saw that while he was president. Gas was the cheapest it had been in like over a decade. Prices were down. We were seeing some of the best, economics in our country in 60
Mortgages were
years.
at 2 to 3%,
Yeah, mortgages were at an all-time low. People were buying houses. Things were great.
but Dale,
I would
what's
say
Trump's appeal to the MAGA voter?
at his policies. You see, one of the things that they try to hit on Trump, and especially during the debate, they were trying to like, oh, well, the your policies that you're proposing are supposedly going to add trillions of dollars to the debt. What is your plan? What do you think about that? And so, what you look at when Trump's response is, he actually has a plan for all of his policies. How are you going to offset the cash? Well, we're going to cut regulations and we're going to cut taxes. And by doing that, you're going to incentivize more companies, more people to move into the United States, open up the workforce. More people are going to be working. If more people are working, more people are paying taxes. If more people are paying taxes, you receive more taxes. And this was proven, and he said this during the debate. The government received, after the Trump tax cuts, the government received more taxes from, as a whole. They increased revenue from taxes because of that philosophy. Cutting regulations and cutting taxes causes more people to be able to get into the workforce and spend the money on taxes. Not to mention the tariffs, which he talks about, which tariffs are useful for China and for other things, right? Tariffs are good things in certain circumstances because they allow you to basically take the edge off of what the opponent is trying to do, right? What China is trying to do, how they're trying to they're trying to trick us out of money and give us one-sided deals. And what Trump did was Trump got China to buy products from us. One of the craziest things that no one noticed, or not a lot of people noticed, during the Kamala Harris and Trump debate. Kamala Harris is like, Donald Trump was selling things to China. And then she said this false claim that he was selling microchips when the U.S. doesn't even make microchips at all right now. Almost not at all right now because they're made in Taiwan. Trump sold $50 billion of agricultural product to China, including a large portion of that of rice. We were selling rice to China. I don't think you understand how crazy that is. It was cheaper for the Chinese government to buy rice from us than to make it themselves, basically. That's the only reason they bought it from us. Exactly. And it's like, Donald Trump did that. He brokered that deal. So the appeal to the American voter, to the MAGA voter, is all of his policies have fill to them. They actually have substance behind them. Thought process of this pays for this pays for this. That's why we can have this. Kamala Harris is like, I'm gonna give you free money. It's like, okay, how are you gonna give me? Okay, well, how are you gonna pay for the free money? I'm gonna give you more free money. Okay, how are you gonna pay for that free money? I'm gonna give. You don't have anything. Well, you see, I grew up in the middle class. It's like, that's not what I asked. She doesn't have a plan. She's just using these talking points saying, oh, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you this, with no plan on how to implement it or how to pay for it. She's just going to blow up the spending even more. And at a certain point, we're no longer talking about the dollar being worth anything if the U.S. military is gone. Because effectively, that's what we use to back the U.S. dollar now. It's not a gold standard. It's not any actual substance. It's literally backed by the bet that America is going to remain a superpower. And because of that, that's why Democrats are allowed to blow out the spending like they are. That's why everybody's allowed to blow out the spending. But to reduce government spending is against it. They won't do it. They won't do it. Even though the biggest two things that take out of our government that cause the trillions of dollars to flow out is Social Security and Medicaid, and no one wants to touch it. But Donald Trump's policies his proposed policies all have the substance of thought behind it that allows it to work. They have it's like, why does this light bulb turn on when I twist it into this machine? It's, I twist the light bulb into the socket, it turns on. Kamala Harris, she takes the same light bulb, she puts it in the socket, and it doesn't turn on, while Trump's, it does. What's the difference? Well, behind that socket, there's a giant machine creating electricity. For Trump and for Kamala, it's a cardboard box that says power. So
that's the inside of her head.
What do you think the appeal is, Jared?
So for me, Trump's appeal is what they say about Kamala, actually. Trump understands the general American public. He knows the struggles that Americans are working under the Biden-Harris administration. He's he's going to eliminate tax on overtime because he knows those people are struggling. Everyone is struggling under inflation that Biden and Harris created. It's crippling Americans. Americans are living paycheck to paycheck when they're making $40,000, $50,000 a year just because of how much everything costs now. And Trump's plan is, I hear you that you're struggling, you're working hard, I'm going to reward you for your hard work. And he focuses on fixing the problems that are plaguing Americans because he understands you can't succeed, you can't pursue the American dream if you're spending 100% of your paycheck on all your necessities. And something similar to what Aaron was saying is he is real. He's not a career politician. He's honestly a very enjoyable person when you're watching his rallies, when he's doing something off the cuff, when something happens, he's very sincere. He was shot in the head and he gets up and he yells, "Fight, fight, fight." He's a natural born leader. It's just an innate response for him. Whenever people are at his rallies and they pass out, he goes and he checks and makes sure that they're okay. Just yesterday, there's a clip on Instagram that showed somebody, I think it was today, that showed somebody was recording Trump and JD Vance, and Trump spotted them recording, and he just pointed at them and then gave them a thumbs up. Like he actually sees and interacts with what Democrats call the middle class, the people that they don't interact with. And so that's his appeal to me, is that one, he understands Americans, and two, he's sincere. Now, let's move on to uh, the question that Kamala was asked in her interview about guns. So she was asked where she draws the line on guns, and her response was very, very unsettling. Aaron Dale, your comments on this?
So her response was, "Oh, I'm not gonna touch your guns. I'm going to, I believe in the Second Amendment." But and then she said, and then it's like, but we've got to stop with these assault weapons. These weapons were literally engineered for war. And okay, that's not true. When she's talking about assault weapons, and when the entire left is talking about assault weapons, they are referring to the AR-15. 99% of the time, they may be referring to AK-47s sometimes, but the majority they are trying to ban AR-15s. They say AR-15 assault weapon. The AR-15 was designed to be a civilian sportsman's rifle. It was never designed to be a military rifle. The specifications are different. Just because it looks similar to the Army's M16 or the Army's M4 does not mean that it is a weapon of war. Weapons of war, assault weapons of the M16 and forward era were designed, the actual ones for the military were designed with fully automatic fire in mind and burst fire in mind, which means the selector switch had to go from burst to fully auto to safe. And to do that, the actual lower receiver has to be milled completely different. That is completely different from a semi-auto. So it's a completely different gun. An M16 and an AR-15 are two completely different guns. An M4 and an AR-15 are two completely different guns. They say this thing because it looks similar. It's like, oh, it's a weapon of war. Well, a bolt-action rifle is a weapon of war. And so on its face, it's a lie because the weapons they're talking about are not the weapons they're talking about, because it's illegal to get, as a regular citizen, it is pretty much illegal in the U.S. for you to obtain a fully automatic assault rifle, aka an M4 or an M16. What she really means is AR-15s, which are the most used rifle in America because it's easy to shoot, it has low recoil, and it can accomplish that with a bullet. She goes on to talk. I was a prosecutor, and I saw the wounds and the autopsies of this weapon. If you actually look at it, a 5.56 does not have a visceral wound cavity that would leave scars upon your. It doesn't blow your body out. It doesn't. You don't get shot with a AR-15's 5.56 cartridge, and your lung just is out of your body because the bullet diameter is so small. It moves very fast, but the bullet diameter is so small. If you want to understand a little bit about bullet mechanics, it's all about energy transfer. The bigger the bullet, the faster it goes. Sorry, the faster a bullet goes, and the larger the size it is, directly correlate to how much damage it does in the body. For instance, a 5.56, which the AR-15 uses, is a small bullet that goes very fast, versus a 30-06 bullet, which is what the M1 Garand, which is what the warfighters in World War II used, the Americans, moves at a slightly lower speed, but has, I believe, 5 times the mass, 3 to 5 times the mass, and causes much more damage. So just saying, not having any understanding of weapons and firearms, she wants us to believe that she has a gun, and she's a gun owner, so she knows about firearms. That's not true at all.
Okay,
And
yeah, you can be a gun owner and know nothing about firearms at all. Like she may
exactly.
actually be a gun owner, but it could be a little bitty 22 revolver and she may have never shot it before. That's cool. Have you used it? Are you qualified? When I was 14, I bought my first car from my grandfather. Does that mean that I could talk about how driving was and how driving affects people? Absolutely not. I had zero driving experience. I didn't have a license. I wasn't old enough to get a license at that time. It's the exact same thing. Just because she has one doesn't mean she knows how to use it or she's qualified to talk about it. And like Dale was saying, they're talking about this 5.56, it blows, you know, it's just the damage is irreparable. And they have like this doctor come out and talk about it. And then, Joe Biden saying the 9 mil is going to blow the lung out of your chest. Like, what? First of all, if 5.56, around as small as 5.56, just caused irreparable damage, we wouldn't have servicemen who have survived being shot by AKs, which, news alert for nobody who knows guns, it's a bigger round than the 5.56. It's a chonker. 7.62 by 39 is a lot larger than 5.56. The 5.56 bullet, don't get me wrong, it'll kill. That's the point of a bullet. It will kill. But it's a small round. In fact, if you're talking about stuff that's large game, right, like deer and stuff like that, which is, a deer weighs probably close to what a person weighs.
150 to 220, something like that.
Exactly, right? The average American weighs probably somewhere in there. But that is considered actually kind of a light round if you're going deer hunting. If Dale, you remember this. We went deer hunting, like 9 years ago, and our friend Jeriel brought his AR 5.56, and the first thing that we said was like, man, that's a small round for what we're hunting. Typically you want something a little heavier. You were with a 30-30, so we knew it was going to get it done, but 5.56 is a small round. It doesn't cause this irreparable damage to them, and it's not going to put like this huge hole in you or anything. What 5.56 actually does is it's kind of meant to go into you, and what they really want it to do is bounce around in your body.
They want it
Right?
to
There are
tumble, yeah. They
stories.
want it to
Yeah,
deflect and tumble and create a
exactly.
sawing motion.
There's stories of guys getting shot in the shoulder and it comes out their leg, right? That's what makes it deadly. That's what you want. It's not like this, oh, it's just going to blow up and it's just a piece of the body is missing. No, it's typically a clean hole if it shoots right through. Like it's a fast round. It's moving quick and it's small. It's not this huge, bunker buster round. And so they over exaggerate these rounds. Now, a 9 mil blowing the lung out of your body, please, right? I have a 9 mil and a 45 ACP. If my 45 is not going to take your whole lung out, your 9 mil definitely isn't, right? So these are major exaggerations that they're made. And going back to the Constitution, right? When the Constitution was made for the right to bear arms, it was not, so that they can hunt. They had just finished fighting a war against a superpower. They know exactly what they were saying. Practically every rifle and weapon that the people had at that time were weapons that they had used in war, right? And I'm not just talking guns. People had their own ships with cannons. Like they had all these crazy things. And the people be like, well, back then it was just muskets and they were single fire. Actually, I believe the first patent for the original Gatling gun was already being built. They had revolvers that could shoot, not revolvers, but like these weird pistols that had like 15 barrels and
Or
they would shoot
multiple,
up to
yeah.
like 15 shots. Like there were multiple examples of weapons that were available at this time that shot more than one round, and a lot of them were quote unquote high capacity. Like knowing your history, like the point of having the Second Amendment is twofold, right? It's there to protect the citizen. It's there to protect the citizen from two things. Number one, from the government. Number two, from threats and or foreign invasion, right? Those are the two things that the Second Amendment is there. It's there to protect you from government and all of your other rights that the government promises you. And for when a foreign power decides that they're going to invade, that's what keeps you safe. Was it the Japanese? The reason why America wasn't invaded at World War II is because the Japanese said if they were to invade the United States, there would be a machine gun behind every blade of grass. The fact that America has this unique right where we can have weapons has saved us from foreign invasion because people know how intense it would be. There are over 500 million weapons that belong to the citizens in this country today. That's more people than we have alive, and there's a couple trillion rounds of ammo that are owned by all the citizens. If guns were truly the problem, nobody would be alive. The United States would be a complete wasteland. But yet we're 300 plus million strong, and that's not counting, illegal immigration, which is probably another 20 to 30 million people. And all these people that are dying, oh, look at these people that they're using examples to take guns away from. Guess what? It was illegal for them to have those guns in the first place. There's already a law telling them that they can't do that. The only thing that that's going to do is it's going to punish the law-abiding citizen. Crime rates go up when average citizens can no longer protect themselves. And that is a fact. You can look that up everywhere where they have de-armed the standard population. Criminal organizations take a massive rise because guess what? Criminals don't listen to your laws and they'll do what they want. There's a famous quote, I believe it was from Hillary Clinton, where she's talking about, look, when the bad guys see that we have all put our guns away and we don't have our guns, they will lay their guns too, because that's just human nature. And I'm like, no, human nature is somebody taking a shotgun into a classroom where nobody else is armed. Whoa, did he look around at all the kids and did he go, oh, you guys are unarmed, let me throw my shotgun down? No. What he said was, I have the power. You listen to me or I'm going to blow you away with this shotgun. That's human nature. And it comes down to, you can really see this too in the approach of the Democratic Party the last couple elections, right? They go through this whole, oh, we're just looking for the inner good in people, right? We know that if we do this together, we are all good and we want this thing. Sorry, there is none good, no, not one. Man is desperately evil. Your heart is desperately evil and wicked. Who can know it, right? Like, these are things that we know. Man is naturally evil. So this idea that man will do the good thing when left to his own devices is absolutely ridiculous, and there's no foundation on any of it. So one last thing I'd like to touch before we wrap up, a thing I guess that's pretty big, would be the whistleblower for the Kamala Harris and Trump Biden, Trump in
I mean, Harris is
debate.
Biden 2.0.
Yeah.
Versus Harris.
Black female Biden.
Yes. The Indian black female
Oh,
Biden. Let's not
okay.
forget what she originally was, right? Like we can't forget that she her first part. But the whistleblower that came forth mysteriously died in a car accident. What? Is this the Clinton situation over again? I mean, who else has 97 friends that all quote unquote commit suicide, right? Of course, this person comes out and says, "Oh, it's rigged," and then they end up dead. This is not uncommon, sadly, in the U.S. and for political people, specifically Democrats. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if she cheated. One thing that hasn't been verified, but is quite plausible, that's been floating around, were the earrings. A lot of people saw that the clip-on earrings that Kamala was wearing during the debate are the exact, or at least they look the exact same as these clip-on earrings that had like a audio transmitter in them.
They're
The
Bluetooth
Bluetooth,
earphones.
yeah,
They're
Bluetooth
Bluetooth
earphones
earrings. Yeah.
that came out like a couple years ago, right? They look the exact same, and a lot of people were commenting on that when that came out, right? That, a lot of ladies were kind of like, why is she wearing these clip-on earrings? Like, they look ridiculous. Like, why is she wearing that specific thing? It's so out of fashion. Well, if it's true that that's what these are, it's because, she's literally sitting there getting all the answers that she needs and being walked through everything, right?
And if you don't believe that
So,
those actually exist, they use this technology called bone conduction, to where they're actually transmitting vibrations through the cartilage in your ear to give you the sound. So
yeah.
yes, it is an
Well,
actual
well,
technology that exists.
most people know about those now. I mean, even my coworkers come in with the ones that go kind of right over your temple,
Oh yeah.
and they play music there. Most of my coworkers actually run with those, so a lot of people know that those exist, anyways. But I think that's kind of where we're gonna wrap it up today. We're running short on time. There was a lot that happened this week, though, and I'm pretty sure there's gonna be even more next week for the next episode. So we thank you guys for sticking around. I'm excited to see where everything goes from here. Last week was exciting. We actually had our first ever hate comment on a video. Somebody said we were on copium, which is funny because last video was nothing but fact checking the debate. So if it's copium to actually know what facts are and know what the truth is, then sure, I'm on copium. But okay, so
And I hope that
we
person that
do.
commented likes or dislikes and shares the episode with everyone else that would dislike it as well.
That's right. There's no such thing as bad publicity. No, seriously though, we do appreciate any kind of comments. I mean, even the fact that he disagreed with us, it's a wonderful thing that we live in the United States where we have the freedom of speech to be able to comment what we want on videos. We're not in Britain, right, where I can say, "Oh, hey, that guy just commented hate speech," and then the British police will go and arrest you. Which is happening right now in Britain, right? So it's a very exciting, and for those of you that would like to get more involved, please, we'd love your recommendations. We would love suggestions, things you'd like us to talk about. Please feel free to comment, share, like, subscribe, do whatever you'd like. Block us if you want. I mean, anything really works, I guess. You have the freedom to do it. Our comment section is a safe space. Not a safe space as in I'm going to monitor what you say, and if it's mean, you're kicked out. It's a safe space as in say whatever you want. We don't care. You have the freedom of speech. You're safe to speak your opinion.
Provided you don't speak certain things.
That's true. Let's try to keep like crass things of
PG-13, please.
profanity. Keep profanity and stuff out of our comment section would be preferred for sure. Well, anyways, gentlemen, thank you for taking this time to join us for our weekly news review. Again, my name was Aaron,
My name is Dale.
And this is Jared. Thanks for listening.
and we'll see you next time on the next episode of The OutCast.